Good day everyone. So for this video, I will be discussing the rule number 12, which is sailing vessels. Sailing vessels. Paragraph letter A. When two sailing vessels are approaching one another so as to involve risk of collision, one of them shall keep out of the way of the other as follows. So in this sentence explains that if two sailing vessels is approaching to each other, so they involve of risk of collision. So one of them should keep out of the way. But if there is no involvement of the risk of collision, so this sentence would not be in used. So let's proceed to the paragraph A1. When each has the wind on each different side, the vessel which has the wind on the port side shall keep out of the way of the other. So let's see in this diagram. So as we can see an arrow, so it represents the wind, and we should put ourselves on the blue vessels, which is on the port side, and the red vessels has the wind on the starboard side, while the blue vessel has the wind on the port side. So, as they observing themselves and going through the water, so as they approaching to each other, so they see that there is a risk of collision. So, one other vessel or the vessel that having the wind on the port side should keep out of the way. So the blue vessel have the wind on the port side. So the blue vessel make an alteration and point out to the another direction and keep out from the way. So now the risk of collision is clear and past. Now paragraph A number 2. When both have the wind on the same side is to leeward.
So we'll put the
So
wind
now
arrow at the
let's
top.
see the
We're going to
example
place
on this
ourselves on the
diagram.
small vessel at the
So
bottom.
we
We're
put
on the blue
ourselves
vessel this
to the
time again.
blue vessel
You can see the sail is hanging
and
across the port side of our vessel.
having the
The
wind
wind
on
is on
the
our starboard
starboard
side.
side.
So we're sailing along quite happily,
And
but we then
another
see another
vessel, which is
vessel.
the red, also
We can make out
is
she's a
seen
sailing vessel.
having the
We can see her
wind
sails
on
up.
the starboard
We
side.
can even make out that she's got the only way to do that
So
is
as
to
they
continue to
going
monitor the
through the
situation.
water, they observe that
After a
there
little
is
while,
a
we've seen
risk
that the
of
bearing between us
collisions
isn't changing.
or
We know
a
risk of collision
crossing
exists.
situation.
So, what are we going to
So
do?
now, one
Well, under
vessel
Rule 12,
should keep
we know
out
we've
of
got
the
two
way.
sailing vessels,
So the
risk
red
of collision
vessel is
exists,
the
Rule 12
gray
applies.
vessel and the blue vessel is
We know
the
we've both got the
starboard
wind on the
vessel.
same side,
So now,
so the vessel which is
the
to
red
windward
vessel should
needs to
make
keep out of the
an
way. In
alteration
this case, the red
or
vessel
pointing
is
out
the
to
give-way
the
vessel,
another
and the blue
direction
vessel is the stand-on vessel.
as being
So the red one is going to make a
leeway
bold
vessel.
alteration, of
So
course.
now
We can see her
the
coming round, we
vessel
can
is
see she's
taking
taken
out or
action.
make an alteration
And we can continue, and she's going to
and the
pass
two
clear
vessels
astern
is
of
now
us.
going through, and we can
Again,
say
she
that
could have taken any
collision
action. She
is
could
the
have
past
stopped in the
yet.
water, she could have come round to starboard, or she could come round to port. Then we just continue on till we're.
So next, the paragraph letter A number 3. If a vessel with the wind on the port side sees a vessel to windward and cannot determine with certainty whether the other vessel has the wind on the port or on the starboard side, she shall keep out of the way of the other.
Again.
So
Okay, in
now
this
let's
diagram
see
we're
the
going to take the wind
example
again
on this
from the north,
diagram. So
and we're going to place ourselves in
again,
a vessel down here
the
in the
wind
bottom
is
left hand
on
corner.
the north, or
This
the
is pretty
arrow
much the
is
same as in the
pointing
first
at
example.
someone.
We've got the
So
wind on
now
our
let's
port side,
put
sailing
ourselves
along
on
quite
the
happily, nobody
sailing
else, so we can
vessel.
continue. However, we then
And
see
now
another
we
vessel up
see
ahead.
another vessel ahead.
We can tell they're a sailing vessel, we can see
And
they've
the
got their
blue
sails up,
vessel has a lot
but they've
of
got a lot of
sailing,
sails up here,
and
and we
we
know that the
cannot
wind is coming
sure
from astern of them.
which side
So
would
we
be
haven't
the
really
blue
got much
vessel
of an idea
going.
as to which side
So
she's got
first,
her wind.
let's observe
We've
the
got to
drift
determine,
of the
first of
ocean.
all, whether risk of collision exists.
So,
So we'll
as they're
continue to
going
monitor the
through the
situation.
water, so they see
We
that
can see the
risk
compass
of
bearing hasn't
collision
appreciably
occurs
changed,
here
so we know
or
risk of
a
collision exists.
crossing situation.
But we've now got to determine our action. We know that
So
rule
now,
12
the
applies
red
because we're
vessel
both
should
sailing.
make an
And then we're thinking, hang
alteration
on, what if she's got the wind on the
or
other side? If
going
she's got the
through
wind on
the
her starboard
another
side,
direction.
then I've got
So
certainty.
now the
So
red
we've got to keep out
is
of her
pointing
way.
out in another direction.
This time we're going to make a bold
It
alteration to
is which is
starboard
the same as
and
the blue,
continue
and now
till we're
pointing
finally
again
past
in
and clear,
another direction to
and
go
then we
back
can
to
continue on our
its
way knowing
original
risk of
direction,
collision does
and
not
now
exist.
the risk of collision is past and clear. Now, paragraph letter B. For the purpose of this rule, the windward side shall be deemed to be the side opposite to the on which the mainsail is carried, or, in the case of the square-rigged vessel, the side opposite to in which the largest fore and aft sail is carried. So now for the example of this paragraph, we can see a yacht which is using a sailing. So now we see that we should focus on the sailing, which is the big sailing. So we can see that the sailing vessel is in the port side of the yacht. So the wind is coming from the starboard side. So that would be all in this rule, and thank you everyone.